Sorry, I ran out of storage on my phone, so I'm gonna just continue. I was on the third. I was just finishing up the third slide. The choice is taken under most circumstances to end the persistent suffering that individuals experience because of a terminal illness, genetic disorder, or traumatic event. And when it's saying that traumatic event, that's basically meaning like, car accident. Well, like I was saying previously, a car accident. A victim of a crime, anything on that sort, on that page, basically. Um, Avoiding patient caregiver guilt. Patients can avoid the issue of caregiver guilt with euthanasia. Caregiver guilt can be described as when a person begins to feel like a burden on people they love, creating a reaction that can cause relationship changes. People that are constantly in need of help or assistance from loved ones that are struggling to provide for them tend to feel guilt and sorrow and would do anything to help themselves and family. So yeah, this is going towards like say if your family is missing work or something like that, missing work to be with you and take care of you. Let's see another example. Another example would probably be if if they're paying like enough then they can afford to make you survive, even though the chances are like unlikely. So if you're in a coma or something like that and you have like a 2% chance of recovering from the coma, and you're just laying there and they can't really do anything about it, and they know that you're probably gonna end up passing. I mean, like, that's really not that really wouldn't make a good example for this one, but that's just an example in general. Like, the patient would feel guilt and sorrow if they were in that situation. Like, especially if they were in like a cancer situation, they had a 2% chance of survival. Then it would be like you really can't do anything about that. So if the patient chooses and the family chooses, then it would be better for everybody. Why should we make euthanasia legal? The goals of the medical profession should be to save lives, but this should not be at the expense of compassion and a terminally ill individual's right to choose to end his or her life and die with dignity. The right to live and the right to private and family life should be interpreted broadly to include decisions about life, quality of life, including decisions about death if there is no longer quality of life of quality. Many people believe the only humane choice is to avoid individuals who are suffering to choose to end their suffering. So, a lot of people believe that, if they're suffering and the option of euthanasia is here, then, they have the choice to take it. And the family, I'm pretty sure any family would rather have their loved ones pass away in a manner on which they agree everything and, agree upon everything and prepare for it. Regulatory control. The terminally ill are traveling abroad to countries where the right to end a life in terminal cases is recognized is lawful. We must not prosecute loved ones for encouraging or assisting a suicide who enable or assist a terminally ill individual to travel abroad to end his or her life lawfully. So this is going towards like why shouldn't you, basically is saying, so people are getting in trouble for going to different states and countries to basically help assist their loved ones in assisted suicide. And I personally think that it's not okay, because a lot of people want to take this option. It might be better for them mentally, emotionally. A lot of people really suffer for months and years on after a loved one passes away. So, I mean, like, I believe that this is only right to not prosecute loved ones. The next slide, the interference with current laws. The law should not criminalize people who accompany those who make rational decisions to end their suffering. Like last slide, if it is their destiny to die a peaceful death with the help of euthanasia, then why, punish physicians and family members? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of the controversy right now. A lot of people are like, why should they be punished? Why should they be prosecuted? I mean, even though it's illegal in some states, it's going to interfere with other current laws. Discriminatory effect of the laws. The ability of the wealthy to travel to countries where it's lawful for the terminally ill to end their life has a discriminatory impact of treating the haves and have-nots unequally. So this is, I'll explain after I do a second bullet point. It is a very unnecessary and difficult to abide to these laws if you decide to choose euthanasia and have to go to a different state or country to execute with your plans. Typically boils down to who can afford it. So that's what I was trying to get to. So basically it boils down to who can afford it and who can't at that point, because a lot of people can't afford to, go to different countries or have their loved ones transported to different states. Like here in the United States, where it's legal in Oregon, people can't get their loved ones there. I mean, it takes a lot of money, and a lot of people don't have a lot of money to do so, especially in these situations such as cancer. Like a lot of people get cancer, especially people who are smoking. Not a lot of people are able to afford it. Should euthanasia be legalized, and why? All people of goodwill will agree that we should alleviate suffering. And yep, I agree with this one too, because if you're really suffering, then there's an easier way. You don't have to live the rest of your life in pain. It could be miserable. Typically, requests come from patients experience unbearable suffering with no prospect of improvement. So, like I said, with that, back to that 2% chance, like that could be a like not a prospect of improvement. That's like you might pass away soon, and there's little way to help it. And that's what it boils down to on that side of it. The most common reasons people give for making the choice to end their lives are fears about loss of autonomy or a desire not to be a burden to others. So this goes back to the reliability on the loved one's part. A lot of people feel that they're not going to make their loved ones, hustle and like try to help them out. I mean, if they have a low chance of living anyway. Expanding the scope of legalized euthanasia undermines compassion for those who suffer. Euthanasia should be an option for families who wish to avoid intolerable suffering of loved ones. Euthanasia is a term that connotates mercy, compassion, understanding, and the willingness to help someone who wishes to avoid otherwise intolerable suffering. In treatment of the existential suffering that arises from the fears about the future, the goal is not to relieve suffering. It is to prevent the possibility of the future suffering. In voluntary euthanasia, a competent patient chooses to die on the basis of his or her own evaluation of his or her life. The unbearably sad circumstances of a child dying can make it gentler, easier, and more humane for both the child and for the parents in whose arms you can help that a death occur. So basically that's saying, for the children's aspect, like, it's really sad. Should euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide be legal? Why? The right of competent terminally ill person to avoid excruciating pain and embrace a timely, dignified death bears the sanction of history and is implicit in the concept of ordered liberty. When healing is no longer possible, when death is imminent and patients find their suffering unbearable, then the physician's role should be from shift from healing to relieving suffering. It would be hard for me to construct addressing the suffering of a terminally ill patient as a harm. The right to die should be a matter of personal choice. The goal of the physician should be to improve the quality of life for both the patient and the family in such a situation. The most significant vulnerability in many of the terminally ill is that of agonizing, chronic, and unbelievable pain. To prolong a death in some cases is not helpful and could be counterproductive. Integrates compassionate care and respect for the patient's autonomy and ultimately makes death with dignity a real option. All right, and to the last slide. The decision of assisted suicide is one for both the patient and the physician to agree upon. I believe that no physician should have to comply with a request to assist a terminally ill patient to die, just as no patient should be coerced into making such a request. It should be a choice for both the physician and the patient. And that's the end. Thanks.